Hello, 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 everyone. Dr. Rowena Winkler here, and today we are going to be doing our inner child healing workshop. I'm very excited about this offering. I felt called to do this after doing some of my own intense inner child healing work this summer that was kicked off by Cancer season and all the eclipses and retrogrades and all the astrological things that moved me to do a lot of this work. In addition, I'm going to talk about in just a little bit, but as a new mommy, I feel like it's a bit triggering and re-triggering being a new parent. So you really dive deep into that inner child work when you have your own child to attend to. So here's the agenda for today. As I mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about me, and then we're going to get into the Pisces full moon portion of this evening, which is doing a little meditation, doing a card pull, really bringing in the energy of Pisces and the Pisces full moon. We're going to get into some affirmations, and then I'm going to talk about the value tower that I created in regards to inner child healing work. We're going to give some examples about how to put that into practice, and then we'll wrap it up and go into next steps. So you'll see that you can ask questions as needed. I have the chat open, so I will take a look with things that come up for you and that may be resonant. So a little bit about me. Oh, hey, hi. I've said this again and again and again, but I've come to the realization in 2021 that I am a multi-hyphenate. And what that means is that Dr. Rowena, I don't see myself as putting myself in one box. I don't compartmentalize myself in one box. So I love to write. I'm a writer. I'm a mommypreneur. I'm a musical theater performer. I'm a ballroom dancer. I'm an astrologer. And when it comes to my coaching business, I can be your accountability partner, a spiritual guide, as I have deepened my own spiritual practice when I've been on this journey. Your number one cheerleader, truly an empath. So I feel all the feels and I'm with you, and a mentor in the sense that I can develop a strategy, a plan, and I'll show you how that manifests in this instance with this value tower, to help guide you on your own journey and to mentor and help you along the way. So that's me. And so I wanted to engage in a little meditation with the Pisces full moon. And this is from a card pull that I did this morning, as well as I want to pull another card from one of my new decks. It's Cosmic Dancer Oracle deck. I felt like this was very fitting for Pisces as a very creative sign. So we'll do that. But the card that I pulled this morning is from a deck by Alana Fairchild, who I really enjoy her decks. It's the Isis Oracle deck. And the card here is Magic and Ritual. And it says, effect in the external world can be created through inner practice. Heart-centered ritual can support your inner path in the physical world. You're encouraged to enhance your power with regular practice as you grow in grace, love, ability, and wisdom, applying your inner beauty to transform your outer world. And I just thought, I pulled this card this morning and I was like, wow, this is like so relevant to this workshop on so many different levels. First of all, the fact that it calls to mind the need for an inner practice and inner work. And that is a huge reason, as I mentioned, becoming a mom myself and having my own children. Now that I have a daughter, I wanted to tap into my own inner child and work through some of the ways that my childhood self didn't feel nurtured or cared for, as I'm now caring for this little human. And I love that how through this inner work, this can then transmute into what is happening in the external, and how through ritual, through things like a full moon practice, through things like inner child healing work, through things like finding community and a spiritual practice, that you can find that support to guide you on this path and on this journey. And so this was very encouraging. And I felt that, it was a great way to kick off this session. And now I'm going to pull from this deck, this Cosmic Dancer deck, which is a brand new deck, y'all. So I haven't even taken the packaging off of it. So I'm very excited to see what comes up for this full moon, what comes up as we engage and dive into this really important work, this necessary work, because we can't be our best selves if we are holding ourselves back, if our blocks and limiting beliefs that are tied to the trauma we received as a child are still present and effervescent in our lives. So I think that for me personally, the power of Pisces, and I am a Pisces, full disclosure, that the power of Pisces and the beauty of Pisces is that through this beautiful sign of the fish, through this yin and yang, through this balance, through this creativity, this dance, we can find the inner peace and the inner love and care that has been there all along. The realization and the truth of the matter is you don't need anyone else really to validate you, that you are special, you are loved, you matter, you're amazing just on your own. And so by tapping into that and knowing that by engaging in heart-centered ritual and practice like this card told us and shared with us and sent to us through God, source, universe, whatever that may be, that we can then continue on in being our authentic selves. And so, oh my goodness, this is all, we are pulling some good cards tonight. So this card that came up, it's called Honor the Lineage. Honor the Lineage. And I can send pictures of these cards as well, but let's just close our eyes and let us take a deep breath. And with our hands splayed on our knees, let's just sit and reflect and take a pause and remind ourselves of how amazing it is to take the time to honor our lineage by delving deep into this inner child work. So there's a lot of talk about karmic chains, karmic paths, generational chains, and how we have this awareness and we want to break down those generational chains. But I invite you to think about this in another way. As the card says of honoring our lineage, what if we think about the generations that come before us, whether that's our mothers, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our own fathers, those that came before us, that any hurt, shame, guilt, trauma, any challenges that may have come up for us during our lifetime, during our time here on this planet, it happened for a reason. It happened so that we could truly see the beautiful resiliency, the spirit, the light that will not let anyone, even our own family, dim. That we honor our lineage because the experiences that we've experienced as children was brought down and passed down through our family in order to truly demonstrate for us what it's like to be in this higher self, what it's like to step audaciously out there without abandon, to do the dance of our ancestors, to honor our ancestors by showing that we are a more ascended self, that we are a higher version of what our lineage, our ancestors, it's beyond their wildest dreams. That we've gone through all this shame, guilt, trauma, hurt, anything that has happened to then lead into these limiting beliefs, these blocks, these manifestations of ways that we project our hurt child selves. These are mirrors to show us what stories we need to share when we come out of it. Because like the dance of our ancestors, we tell stories through our bodies and through our actions and through what we've experienced. And so in this Pisces full moon, let's reflect and celebrate. Let's think about everything that we have done to this very moment, the work that we have done, whether that is our own work, therapy, journaling, community, church, spirituality, creativity. We have done so much to get to this point, and now here we are continuing to do the work. It is not easy work. In fact, it is really, really effing difficult work. But by being here and showing up, despite what may have happened today, an hour ago, last week, a month ago, despite what has happened to us years ago, 5, 10, 15 years ago, we are here and we are showing up. We are creating the magic and the ritual. We are going deep within our inner self so that we can emerge out and show externally the fierce, amazing, wondrous person that we are. And that as a healed adult, we can continue changing lives for others. We can continue being a role model for other people that are going through a similar thing, for other people that have yet to dive deep into this work, because I said it's very difficult, for the people who have their own children and want to role model what this vibrant ascended being looks like. Honor the lineage. We're not demonizing it. In fact, maybe there's a gratitude there, a thank you for showing us that we are worth so much more than any other individual can give us credit for. That what we need is inside us this whole time, and it's just a matter of calling it out through practices like this and by being open and willing to do the work. So let's release and celebrate that and set our intentions for what we want to do moving forward. And role modeling for others and for our children and for our children's children and for other people's children, what it is like to be truly accepted and loved. Woo! Well then, that came through. That was good. Alrighty. Yeah, let me know how you felt about that in the chat if you're so moved. Alrighty. So now that we got that out of the way, let us move on into some affirmations. So I have started doing an affirmation practice. I have this inner child affirmation deck on my website. And I thought that these affirmations would set the tone for this evening. So first off, I am not alone. I'm giving you permission to be yourself. I feel like with a lot of inner child work, a lot of that trauma is due to the fact that we're told as children that we're being too much, we're being too loud, we're being too something. So I am affirming you and giving you permission to be yourself in this journey. And then lastly, and I feel like this comes up a lot when it comes to this work, It's about that unconditional love, that there is no conditions when it comes to caring and nurturing for yourself, that there is unconditional, unwavering, amazing love for you. So, as I mentioned, affirmation decks, feel free to look on the website if you're interested in that. But that was just a sneak peek. Okay, so here's what I call the inner child healing value tower. This was inspired, as you see in the photo on the left. My daughter Kerrigan got a learning tower. These are really popular right now with the children. It has the foundation of it is like Montessori, so it's like a Montessori thing that parents do now to have children, come up on the tower. In this instance, she turned on the light and got very excited about that. But when I was thinking of my child, I thought, oh, what if we had a tower when it comes to this inner child healing? And so I'm going to take, the next 20-30 minutes or so, or maybe less. I don't know. We'll see how long it takes to get through all of this, to talk through the different steps. And yeah, so we'll just go ahead and get into that. So, I just wanted to share before we get into it, this story, right? Putting this work into practice. As I mentioned, it's difficult work because it brings up a lot. It can be very triggering. And so to ensure that you're in a good space, you feel in a safe space container, as I mentioned, this is always a safe space. But the story that I wanted to share, and I talk about this in one of my Instagram lives, one of my IG lives, about how my own child is showing me the lessons of this work, right? So a couple of weekends ago, my daughter has been very interested in going outside. She asks every weekend because at daycare she now goes outside. So when she's not in daycare, she says outside. So I brought her outside and I took our normal walk, and I looked over on our normal route. I looked a little bit ahead and to the left, and I said, oh, there's a playground there. I haven't even noticed that before. So we walked over there, and she just runs around. She's very excited, and she climbs up on the ladder thing and climbs up on the aspects of the playground, and she wants to go down the slide. I don't think it's the one her hand is on. I think it's the one that's to the left. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have my husband with me. There's no one here. I don't know if I can do this and let her go. Well, she really was excited to go down the slide. So she was all seated there, and I did let go, and she took a little tumble. And as I jokingly, well, not really jokingly, I keep telling people she kind of flopped out. She kind of just like did a little tumble and like flopped down the slide. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I run down there and she's fine. Homegirl's fine. She didn't even cry. She just kind of like looked up and she like got herself up and she was running around again. And so, this whole notion of putting this into practice is, yeah, it can be scary. And sometimes you're going to tumble and sometimes you're going to flop out. And, it's going to be like, oh, whoosh. But it can be very freeing, right? It can allow you the courage to explore other areas of the playground of life. So that's just my little analogy tied to this. But the first step of this value tower is visualize. So when it comes to visualization, it is asking a series of questions. It's going back to a particular moment or particular memory that you want to address? Is there something very specific, uh, an, a moment or an integral time in your your childhood that seemed like it was a turning point in terms of how you feel about yourself, right? Because here's the thing, it's when we're brought into this world, we have no notion of 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 this hurt, of this trauma, of this pain. We come in, we're screaming the world and we're taken care of by our parents. So there's usually a moment where there's a realization that something shifts, something happens. So where were you? Well, how old were you? What exactly happened? And when it comes to visualization work in particular, really lean into the feelings associated with it. So with any manifestation visualization, whether you're manifesting something to happen in the future or you're visualizing or going to something that happened in the past, there's always very strong feeling attached to it. So it's sitting, it's doing a meditation similar to what we did earlier. It's sitting and visualizing, okay, what was that moment? What was that turning point? And maybe it wasn't an exact event, but maybe it was a series of events. Maybe it was a particular place or a particular age, right? Maybe it's tied to particular people in your life. So just visualize what that looks like, which could have made an impact there. So that's step one of this model. And you know, I would invite you to take deep breaths, drink a lot of water, if you need to pull cards, if you need to, whatever you need to do to kind of get yourself in that visualization state. So that's step one. Step two is the venturing part of it. So this can be really tough. And when I mentioned this is really, really demanding or intense work, this is probably this middle piece is probably one of the toughest parts of it, right? Because you are going back to that time and thinking about what was the worst part of that memory, right? What happened there that makes it so top of mind, that brings up these feelings? And in terms of these feelings, what was the worst of it? What brings those those feelings of shame, of guilt, that you get physical manifestations even today, right? Whether that is you're short of breath, or your hands get sweaty, or your stomach goes in knots, or you're ruminating, like your mind is racing, you know? So think about that. Think about yourself. Place yourself in that time. Place yourself, visualize yourself in that moment. And think about what happened in that moment that you needed at that time, that most likely didn't happen, right? What did you need? What did that inner child, what did that childhood self need at that time, in that pivotal moment? And now, taking a step back from that, taking this broad view and looking at your adult self, looking back on that self and asking, adult self, what do you need now? Because oftentimes what we needed back then gets all twisted up, and we experience life and things happen, and what we need now may not necessarily be what we needed at the time. So for example, what I needed at the time was reassurance that I can make mistakes, right? That if I make mistakes, I am still worthy, I'm still loved. And what do I need now? What I need now is the permission to experiment. What I need now is the permission to no longer have to be so perfect all the time, right? So that's just the example of what that looks like. So taking that moment, attaching the feeling, and asking yourself, what did you need? And how has that translated to your adult self? And what do you need now to find some closure there, to be able to bridge the gap and to integrate those child selves and adult selves? Because there's no longer this inner struggle. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's what the venturing piece is. And then lastly, we get into the vent. And personally, as a creative, I feel like this is probably one of my most favorite parts, because it's the release, right? We're recording this on the Pisces full moon. It's the perfect time to do this, to do those reflections, to do the visualization, to put yourself in that place, that pivotal moment. And maybe there's more than one, but I would invite you to do a big one. And then maybe after we do that, you do that initial release, then going back to it. Maybe it's a daily, weekly practice. I don't know. Maybe it's something that you integrate every full moon, right? So that's about every month to release that energy. Maybe that's something that you incorporate into your practice. So whether that's writing it out, as I mentioned, journaling, right? So you can write, let's say you're writing a journal to that child self. Is it writing a letter to that child self? Is it writing a letter to a parent or parental figure who caused maybe some wounds from your child self? Maybe the exercise is writing back and forth. Maybe it's starting off as adult self and going and writing and responding in child self, and having a back and forth call and response type of situation. Maybe it's a type of scripting where you reframe that event. So as I mentioned, if you situate yourself in that event, what did you need then and what do you need now? Maybe it's a rewriting of that story, of you either reframing it as you did get what you need, or reframing it as you didn't get what you need, but now you're there. Now you have that clarity, right? So if this traumatic, hurtful event happened, instead of seeing it as, oh, I was weak, oh, I was defenseless, seeing it, no, I was strong, I was resilient, I am strong, I am resilient, right? So shifting that perspective. Movement is another great way to vent. Again, that's why I pulled that dance oracle card, that cosmic dancer card, right? So maybe it's playing music from your lineage. Maybe it's honoring your lineage in that way. Maybe it's a song that at the time was triggering because it was related to that event, but maybe it's doing this exercise, doing the writing while listening. Maybe it's doing in a yoga practice. Maybe it's going for a walk or a run to clear your head. Maybe it's doing some EFT tapping, right? To just release that energy. Maybe it is doing acupuncture or some sort of energetic healing, doing some Reiki to really move. So by move, I mean movement, like dancing movement, but it's also moving that stagnant energy, right? There is a block there. That's that release that we need. And the release can also come in many different ways. Again, right now it's Pisces full moon. Pisces, it's a good cry, right? You got to get it out there. So maybe it's a cathartic, full body shaking cry that needs to happen. Maybe it's a release in another way. Maybe you need to run off into the woods and just scream into the void. Maybe it's a release in terms of driving with your windows down and belting some song like Stronger by Kelly Clarkson or something, right? At the top of your lungs. Maybe the release is finally disclosing to friends and family about what happened and what this means for you. Maybe it is so much so a ritual of release where you write the stuff down, the things that you write, and you burn it or you bury it in the ground. And then that, as I mentioned, the sharing piece, it could be sharing with a trusted loved one, disclosing. It could be sharing if you feel so compelled to share. And again, like, this is your work, right? This work is done for you. So, you don't necessarily have to share. If you write all these things and you burn it or you hide it or you keep it to yourself, that's good. You're doing the work. And maybe, as I mentioned, if you engage in a practice, whether that is monthly or weekly or daily, maybe it's just keeping it all in one notebook so that you can go back to it and share with yourself and do this exercise of sharing with that inner child. So, you know, it there's no limit to where you can take this, especially in this vent phase, because for every person it's different. Some people want to run into the woods and shout into the void. Some people want to just get into some meditative stillness and journal it out. And you know what? Sometimes it depends. Some days you might be feeling like you want to run and shout into the void, and other days you don't. And that's okay too, right? It can all change. As I mentioned, the visualization could be a little bit different each time. Maybe you want to tackle a different memory. Maybe you want to tackle a different aspect of this work. Maybe you want to venture into something different. Maybe you want to venture into the same memory, but from a different angle, right? Maybe before you were looking at it, it's kind of like a movie, right? Like first person perspective versus a third person perspective. In my own work, it was more of, I saw myself in that situation and it was kind of adult Rowena there. But then there are moments, right, where we can integrate in that way. So it really is, it's your practice, but I wanted to, because I'm me, I wanted to create this structure. I wanted to create this value tower that I call it, where you do the steps, you do the work, and it's as you see. Actually, let's see, that's the next steps. I want to go back to the actual model. I probably should have put it after the fact, but as you see here, like, you visualize, you venture, you vent, and then you process, right? Because that's going to take a lot of processing. That's going to be a lot happening there. And then there's the sharing if you're so moved. And then, eventually, depending on where you're at and how much you want to engage in it, then you can get to that healing. And again, healing in any form, especially with inner child, because I feel I've seen and I've experienced and I've had discussions where a lot of the inner child work, the wounds from our parents, from our mothers, from our lineage, it runs so deep, and it's ongoing. So you're not going to be like, boop, I made it to the heel, I'm good. There might be something else that you're like, oh snap, wait, that triggered something. Let's visualize what that was about, or let's dive deeper into what happened there. So just know that it's not boop a doo that it could be an ongoing situation.
Luckily for us, we do not have to be completely alone when it comes to the process and share steps. And with that, I'm so excited to have multiple resources for you. As you know, Dr. Rowena is never having a lack of resources. And as I hope I've made it very clear throughout this, the inner child healing journey has been really powerful and transformative for me. And with that, I want to share all of these resources that I hope will be helpful for you as well. So, we have two meditations. There is one inner child meditation that I recorded a couple of years ago, and then I will have an audio version of the meditation that we did in this workshop today. There is the inner child affirmations deck that I pulled from in this presentation. I have created an inner child healing Spotify playlist. So that's there for you if you're like me and music is your muse and helps you out and is a source of healing and therapy for you. I have created a workbook based off of this value ladder that I've created that allows you to, have a space to to journal and to reflect and to unpack and digest, because I know that there was a lot thrown at you today and it may take a little bit, right, to go through it all. So I've created a workbook for you to help you in that process, because it may take some time, and it will take time, and it's a continuous process, right? So it's something you can revisit over and over and over again. And then if you're interested in working with me one-on-one and in a more, intimate, more personalized, more, a more connected way, I do offer intuitive readings, whether that is oracle card decks like I did for this workshop. I also read tarot. I can look at your astrology chart, your human design chart, and we can take a deeper dive into your inner child journey and what that looks like for you. And hopefully you caught some of the readings that I have done over, the past several days to give you a sense of what that looks like. And then, if you really want to make a more a deeper investment, I suppose, right? I do offer, my life coaching sessions. I offer, one-on-one coaching. And in terms of my life coaching framework, it's an empowerment lens, and it uses a lot of these similar tools and more and some, where we can work one-on-one in a more focused container so that we can help you with whatever's been going on. And so with that, I hope that you got a lot out of today, or a lot out of this workshop. And please feel free to let me know, whether that's in the comments or via email or in the DMs, how you felt, how I can continue to support you. And I'll be sure to provide all of these resources in the notes below, as well as in an email if you signed up. And until then, best of luck with your inner child healing journey, and you got this, and I'm here for you.